The colony on Virlia 9 had never seen anything like the ship that descended from the stars that day. It wasn't a warship, and it didn't carry the usual trading freighters that humans were used to. It glided silently through the thin violet atmosphere, its hull reflecting the twin suns above in jagged patterns of light. Captain Ethan Ward watched from the command balcony, a frown crossing his face. Something about this ship felt different. The aliens, known as Xylians, had been distant neighbors for only a few cycles. They were known for their strange customs and peculiar aesthetics. Messages had been polite but cryptic, filled with strange symbols and tones that human linguists struggled to decode. The Xylians were proud, intelligent, and utterly alien in ways that went beyond appearance. And now, they were delivering a gift. When the crate finally landed in the colony's central plaza, the humans gathered cautiously around it. The container was unassuming, metallic and smooth, with markings that pulsed faintly in an unrecognizable language. The crew had scanned it repeatedly. It had no conventional weapons. It had no dangerous life signs. Yet there was something about it that made the hairs on Ethan's arms rise. The moment the lid opened, the whispers began. The air smelled faintly sweet, like a mix of flowers and metal, and inside was a creature that made even the hardiest crew hesitate. It was a girl, or something resembling a girl, but she was unlike any human child. Her skin shifted colors with every subtle movement, from deep violet to faint silver. Her eyes were luminous, reflecting the light around them in patterns that made it impossible to tell where her gaze began or ended. Her limbs seemed slightly asymmetrical, and small ridges ran along her arms and legs, almost like crystalline growths. The humans, unsure of what to do, murmured their unease. Commander Hale muttered, "Is that really a child?" Ethan stepped forward. There was a quiet in him, a steadiness that silenced the murmurs. He studied her carefully. There was fear in her stance, yes, but also curiosity. She tilted her head slightly, observing them in a way that seemed to see deeper than their outward appearances. She made no sudden moves, and her hands, delicate and glowing faintly, hovered uncertainly in front of her. "You're beautiful," Ethan said softly, surprising even himself. The words were instinctive, not a diplomatic measure or an attempt to calm the crew. "You don't need to be anything else." The girl blinked, if blink was the correct term, and a soft glow spread across her skin like a smile made visible in light. Some of the crew looked shocked, others were silent. Ethan reached out a hand slowly, careful not to frighten her, and she mirrored him, extending her own hand. By the time the medics arrived to check her for health, Ethan had already decided. She wasn't just a gift. She was something more, something the Xylians had underestimated entirely. The humans had been prepared for a gesture of goodwill, maybe even a token, but not for this. They didn't realize she had intelligence and potential far beyond their understanding. He named her Lyra, inspired by the stars above. In the days that followed, Ethan learned that Lyra could communicate, though not in any human language. Instead, she projected light patterns that seemed to carry meaning, subtle and shifting like a complex melody. Human scientists attempted to decode her signals, and slowly, Ethan began to understand them. She could express curiosity, joy, fear, and wonder. Her ability to communicate without words was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. At first, the crew was hesitant. Many of them had never encountered anything so alien yet so alive. Some avoided her, while others stared openly. Lyra noticed these reactions and occasionally withdrew into the shadows, her glow dimming as if reflecting her mood. Ethan realized that her understanding of their reactions was far more acute than they imagined. She sensed fear and discomfort instantly. Ethan took it upon himself to guide her through human ways, but not by forcing her to change. He showed her kindness, respect, and patience. She watched him carefully, absorbing everything, learning quickly. Within a few cycles, she could mimic simple human gestures, laugh, and even mimic expressions. Yet there remained a strange quality about her, an otherworldly essence that no one could fully grasp. The colony began to notice changes. Small lights danced across Lyra's skin as she moved, and when she laughed, the glow seemed to resonate with the energy in the air, creating patterns that mesmerized anyone who watched. The medics and scientists began to record her behavior meticulously, but Ethan cautioned them not to treat her as a specimen. She was not an experiment. She was a person, a being with her own will and potential. One evening, as the twin suns set in the violet sky, Ethan took Lyra to the observation deck. The stars above were brilliant, scattered across the heavens like diamonds on black velvet. Lyra's eyes widened, and a soft shimmer of light ran across her body. "They are beautiful," she said, projecting the thought through the light patterns. Ethan understood immediately. "Yes, they are," he replied, placing his hand gently on hers. "And you can hold them too." Lyra tilted her head, intrigued. Ethan explained that she could learn to channel her light in ways that interacted with energy around her. He didn't know how far her abilities extended, but he had a feeling that the Xylians had not fully revealed her potential. In the following days, Lyra experimented with her powers quietly. She could bend small beams of light, make tiny objects levitate, and even project glowing patterns into the air that seemed almost alive. Ethan watched, fascinated, as she created shapes that resembled stars, planets, and distant galaxies. The realization struck him. The Xylians had sent something beyond human comprehension, something they considered ugly only because they judged by appearances, not potential. The colony's perception began to shift slowly. Those who had initially recoiled from her began to notice her intelligence and the way she cared for others. A child who had been frightened by her at first now ran to greet her, and Lyra responded with a soft, glowing embrace that left everyone in awe. But not all humans were ready to accept her. Some whispered that she was dangerous, that she might be a spy, or worse, a weapon disguised as a child. Ethan knew these fears were natural, but he also understood that their judgments were limited by their own vision, unable to see the beauty and power Lyra carried. One day, a sudden storm struck the colony. Electrical surges and violent winds threatened critical systems. Ethan watched anxiously as the crew scrambled to secure equipment. Lyra, who had been observing quietly, stepped forward. Her glow intensified, and with careful concentration, she projected a field of light that absorbed some of the electrical discharge, shielding the nearby systems. The crew gasped. For the first time, they realized she was more than a child. She was a force of nature in her own right. Ethan's heart swelled with pride. He had called her beautiful not just because of her appearance, but because of the courage, intelligence, and extraordinary potential she carried within her. Later, as the storm subsided, Ethan sat with Lyra in the quiet of the observation deck. The stars had returned, twinkling through the violet haze. "You see, Lyra," Ethan said softly, "beauty is not what people first notice. It's in what you do and how you think and how you face the world. And you are full of beauty." Lyra's glow brightened, a slow and gentle pulse that Ethan felt as warmth. She had understood him. She had always understood him, even when the humans had doubted. The Xylian's gift, intended to be strange or perhaps even unwelcome, had found its place in human hands. Ethan knew this was only the beginning. Lyra's presence would challenge humans to see beyond appearances, to embrace the unknown, and to understand that potential could come in forms no one expected. In the quiet of that night, Ethan placed his hand over hers, and together they gazed at the stars. Lyra lifted her other hand, and the stars above seemed to respond, flickering and shimmering as if acknowledging her presence. A spark of possibility ignited in Ethan's mind. If the stars themselves could be in her hands, what could she achieve? What wonders awaited the human race with Lyra by their side? He smiled, a rare and unguarded smile. The ugliest gift the Xylians had sent was, in truth, a blessing. And for the first time, Ethan understood that true beauty, like the stars above, could not be measured by human eyes alone. And so, life on Virlia 9 changed. The colony would never be the same again. Lyra had arrived as a mysterious gift, but she would stay as a symbol of hope, courage, and the limitless potential of those who dared to see beyond the surface. Ethan watched her as she created tiny constellations in the air, and he whispered almost to himself, "You are beautiful, Lyra, and one day the universe will know it too." The stars above continued to shine, reflecting in Lyra's glowing eyes. Somewhere in the vastness of space, the Xylians would watch and realize that their gift had grown into something neither species could have imagined. And that was only the beginning. The days after the storm passed in a quiet but unusual calm. The humans of Virlia 9 had begun to notice changes in Lyra. She no longer simply followed Ethan or observed the humans cautiously. She began interacting more boldly. Small children gravitated toward her glow, laughing as she created playful lights that danced around their heads. Adults, too, watched with a mixture of awe and fear, unsure how to react to a being so unlike themselves yet so intelligent and gentle. Ethan spent long hours teaching Lyra about human culture. He showed her books, music, and paintings, explaining the meanings behind each piece. Lyra absorbed everything like a sponge, her eyes shifting colors rapidly, showing delight, curiosity, or deep thought. She mimicked musical notes, drew in the air with light, and sometimes even whispered patterns of glow that seemed to harmonize with sound. The more she learned, the more she revealed her own abilities. One morning, Ethan found Lyra in the training yard. She was focused on a small floating ball of energy she had created herself, shaping it and controlling its movements with remarkable precision. Ethan's breath caught as he realized she was doing more than bending light. She was manipulating energy directly, controlling its form and motion. "You've improved," Ethan said, smiling. "But remember, your powers can do more than entertain. They can protect." Lyra tilted her head, her glowing eyes studying him. She understood, even if she didn't fully grasp the human words. Ethan continued patiently, explaining situations where she might need to use her abilities for safety, for defense, for life itself. She practiced daily, guided by Ethan's calm instructions. The colony was still tense. Not all humans were ready to accept Lyra fully. Some whispered behind closed doors, calling her a weapon or dangerous experiment. Ethan knew fear was natural, but he refused to let it dictate how Lyra was treated. He became her protector, her teacher, and her friend. She trusted him completely, a trust he held with great care. The first real test came sooner than anyone expected. A fleet of scavenger ships, rogue mercenaries, and opportunistic pirates had been tracking human colonies along the edge of explored space. Virlia 9, being isolated, was a prime target. Warnings came late, and by the time the colony prepared defenses, the enemy ships were already within striking distance. Chaos erupted. Alarms blared and the crew rushed to stations. Ethan coordinated the defense, but something in his gut told him the humans alone would struggle. Lyra, who had been watching quietly from the observation deck, began to glow brighter, a soft pulse growing into a steady brilliance. "Lyra," Ethan called calmly, even as warnings echoed around them, "you can help. Use what you've learned." She looked at him, a mixture of fear and determination in her shimmering eyes. Slowly, she raised her hands and a soft ripple of light extended outward. The fleet outside the colony paused, sensing something they could not understand. Lyra's energy field expanded, forming a protective shield around the colony. The humans felt the sudden calm, as if a warm wind had blown through the chaos. The enemy ships fired, beams striking the shield, but it held. Ethan's heart pounded as he watched her concentrate, her small body controlling immense energy. She bent light and force around the colony, redirecting attacks with precision. The shield shimmered with colors that no human had names for, a moving aurora that protected every structure beneath it. Some crew members still panicked, unsure what to do. Ethan shouted orders, guiding them to assist where needed, but they quickly realized Lyra's powers were keeping them safe. Slowly, fear turned into admiration. The ugly gift was saving lives, and no human could deny her importance now. When the battle finally ended, the colony was mostly intact. The enemy had retreated, confused and awed by the display of power. Humans gathered around Lyra, many approaching cautiously, unsure how to react. Ethan knelt beside her, brushing a glowing strand of hair from her face. "You did well," he said softly. "You saved them all." Lyra's glow dimmed slightly, but a warm pulse indicated satisfaction. She had understood. She had helped. The incident changed everything. Humans who had doubted her now looked at her with respect and even awe. Scientists documented her actions meticulously, trying to understand the energy she wielded. But Ethan warned them not to treat her as a tool. She was not an experiment. She was a being capable of learning, of choosing, of caring. In the weeks that followed, Lyra's abilities continued to grow. She could create intricate patterns of light, manipulate energy with precision, and even interact with the colony's systems. Power grids stabilized under her influence. Minor malfunctions corrected almost instinctively. People began to notice subtle changes in their environment. The air felt lighter, machinery seemed more efficient, and even the colony's plants responded to her presence with faster growth. Ethan realized something remarkable. Lyra was not just powerful, she enhanced life around her. She was a bridge between the natural, human-made, and cosmic energies of the universe. One afternoon, while observing the stars from the deck, Lyra projected small constellations into the air, tiny lights dancing above her hands. Ethan watched, amazed. "You see," he said softly, "the stars can be in your hands. You can hold the universe if you want. But remember, power is only meaningful when used wisely." Lyra tilted her head, considering his words. Then slowly she nodded, a gesture of understanding. Her eyes glimmered with patterns that Ethan could almost read, and he felt a quiet pride. Not everyone in the colony was comfortable with this new dynamic. A group of humans, fearful and mistrustful, approached Ethan one evening. "She's too powerful," one said. "We don't know what she's capable of. What if she turns against us?" Ethan remained calm. "She is not here to fight us," he replied. "She is here to learn and grow. Fear will not guide her, understanding will." "But what if she's dangerous?" another asked. Ethan looked at them, his expression steady. "Everything living is potentially dangerous. That doesn't make it evil. What matters is guidance, trust, and respect." The group murmured uneasily but eventually left, still uncertain. Ethan knew fear was natural, but he also knew that Lyra's growth depended on humans learning to see beyond appearances, to recognize potential and goodness where others might not. Lyra's bond with Ethan deepened. She learned to mimic his expressions, to anticipate his guidance, and to trust his judgment. He, in turn, learned her subtle cues, understanding the shifts in her glow, the language in her eyes. They became partners in discovery, exploring what she could do and how humans could coexist with something so extraordinary. One night, the colony received another transmission from the Xylians. They requested an update on the gift they had sent. Ethan hesitated but decided honesty was best. He explained Lyra's growth, her abilities, and the recent defense of the colony. The Xylians responded with surprise. In their culture, gifts were rarely judged by usefulness or power. Their intention had been symbolic, perhaps even humorous to them, and yet the humans had taken the gift seriously, nurtured her, and allowed her potential to flourish. Ethan realized something important. The Xylians had underestimated the humans, just as humans had initially underestimated Lyra. But together, they had exceeded expectations, bridging the gap between species and understanding. Lyra's influence extended beyond the colony. Her abilities began to inspire humans to explore their own potential, to think creatively, and to work together. She was a living symbol of what humans could achieve when they embraced the unknown instead of fearing it. One evening, as Ethan watched her from the observation deck, she held her hands up and projected a miniature galaxy. Stars spun and twirled, forming intricate patterns that seemed to defy physics. The light shimmered across her skin, illuminating her in ways that made her appear ethereal, almost divine. "You can do anything you imagine," Ethan said softly. "The universe is yours if you want it, but remember you are part of something bigger. You are not alone." Lyra's glow pulsed with understanding. She raised her hands slightly, and the stars above them seemed to respond, flickering and moving as if alive. Ethan smiled. He knew that her journey was just beginning. The universe had much to teach her, and she had much to teach humanity in return. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine what she could become. Not a weapon, not a tool, not a curiosity, but a beacon, a bridge between species, a teacher, and a guardian of life. The ugly gift had transformed. It was no longer a child of fear or confusion. It was Lyra, radiant, powerful, and undeniably beautiful in every way that mattered. And as Ethan stood beside her, watching the stars dance in her hands, he knew that the galaxy itself would soon recognize the truth he had known from the start. Beauty is not in appearances, but in courage, intelligence, and the heart. And Lyra's heart was brighter than any star. Months had passed since the attack on Violia 9. Lyra had grown stronger, more confident, and far more capable than anyone could have imagined. Her bond with Ethan deepened with each passing day. She no longer simply followed his guidance. She anticipated it, learning not only from him but from the humans around her. Her glowing eyes reflected curiosity, intelligence, and a deep understanding of life itself. The colony had changed. Where fear and mistrust once lingered, there was now cautious admiration. Humans saw that Lyra was not a threat but a being who enhanced life, who brought out the best in those around her. Children laughed in her presence, and even the most skeptical adults found themselves captivated by the beauty of her abilities. She created patterns of light that danced in the air, playful and mesmerizing, yet also protective. The colony's plants flourished under her influence, energy systems stabilized, and morale soared. Then, one quiet morning, a fleet appeared in the skies above Violia 9. They were Xylians, traveling in ships far more advanced than the colony's own. The humans watched nervously as the fleet descended. It was unusual for the Xylians to visit so soon after sending a gift. Ethan and the council prepared for a formal meeting, unsure of what to expect. Lyra, sensing their approach, glowed softly, as if aware of the significance of the moment. She floated beside Ethan, her presence calm and reassuring. The Xylians landed in the central plaza, their forms tall, elegant, and unfamiliar, adorned in intricate designs that reflected light in ways humans could barely comprehend. The lead Xylian, a being named Surith, stepped forward. Their eyes, like polished gemstones, studied the humans and Lyra carefully. "We come to see the outcome of our gift," Surith said, their voice melodic yet firm. Ethan stepped forward, standing tall beside Lyra. "She is here. She has grown, learned, and protected the colony. She is not just a gift, she is part of our lives now." Surith's gaze fell on Lyra. They examined her, noting the glow of her skin, the intricate patterns she could weave with light, and the intelligence reflected in her every movement. Slowly, a hint of astonishment appeared. "This is unexpected," Surith admitted. "We intended a symbolic gesture. We did not foresee such development." Lyra tilted her head, her glow pulsing as if responding to their words. Ethan smiled softly. "Beauty is not in appearances as you judged." True beauty is in actions, courage, and understanding. She has proven that to all of us. The other Xylians looked at each other, exchanging unspoken messages. Their gift, which they had considered strange or even amusing, had become a symbol of unity, courage, and potential. Ethan realized that Lyra's growth had changed perceptions on both sides. Humans who had feared her now admired her, and the Xylians who had sent her as a token now recognized her as extraordinary. Over the following days, negotiations began. The Xylians wanted to understand Lyra's abilities, not as a threat but as a marvel of potential. Ethan facilitated these discussions carefully, ensuring that Lyra was treated with respect. She participated willingly, projecting light patterns that conveyed complex ideas and emotions the humans could barely interpret, but gradually began to understand. Lyra demonstrated her powers in controlled ways. She bent light to create illusions, manipulated energy to power machinery, and even projected holographic representations of the galaxy. Humans and Xylians alike were amazed at her abilities. What had begun as a strange, seemingly ugly gift had become a bridge between species, a living example of cooperation, learning, and trust. One evening, Ethan and Lyra stood on the observation deck, overlooking the colony. The twin suns had set, and the stars stretched endlessly across the sky. Lyra raised her hands, and small constellations formed above them, spinning and shimmering as if the universe itself responded to her presence. "You've come so far," Ethan said softly. "The universe is vast and your potential is limitless. But remember, it's not just about power, it's about how you choose to use it." Lyra's glow pulsed, a rhythm that Ethan recognized as thoughtful. She extended a small hand toward him, and he placed his hand over hers. Together, they manipulated the light above them, forming intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories of courage, hope, and unity. In the weeks that followed, Lyra helped the colony prepare for potential threats and opportunities alike. She trained humans in subtle ways, teaching them to understand energy, light, and the universe in ways previously unimaginable. Her influence transformed the colony, encouraging innovation, creativity, and cooperation. One day, a crisis arrived unexpectedly. A rogue asteroid, massive and fast-moving, threatened to strike the colony. Warning systems activated and panic spread among the inhabitants. Ethan rushed to Lyra, who had been observing the stars. "I need you," he said urgently. "Can you stop it?" Lyra nodded, her glow intensifying. She projected a field of energy that stretched toward the asteroid, bending light and gravitational forces around it. The massive rock slowed, redirected, and finally split into harmless fragments, all controlled by her precise manipulation of cosmic energy. Humans watched in awe, realizing that their lives had been saved once again by the ugly gift they had once feared. The Xylians, who had remained observers during the crisis, were stunned. They approached Ethan and Lyra, their expressions a mixture of admiration and humility. "We underestimated you," Surith said. "She is beyond anything we imagined." Ethan nodded, a proud smile on his face. "She has potential you cannot measure because it comes from understanding, courage, and heart. You gave her to us as a gift. She has become something far greater." Lyra's glow softened, and she projected a series of shimmering symbols in the air. Ethan realized she was communicating gratitude, respect, and a desire to continue bridging worlds. The Xylians watched carefully, learning from her in ways they had never anticipated. The colony celebrated. Lyra had become a symbol of hope, courage, and unity. She had proven that humans could embrace the unknown, nurture potential, and see beauty where others could not. The so-called ugly gift had transformed into a beacon of inspiration, showing that appearances were only a small part of reality. In the quiet of the observation deck, Ethan and Lyra stood together. She lifted her hands, and the stars above seemed to respond, forming intricate constellations that mirrored her inner light. Ethan placed his hand over hers, feeling the warmth, the rhythm, and the energy that pulsed from her. "You've changed everything," he said softly. "Not just here, but in the galaxy. You've shown what humans can be, what we can achieve, and how we can embrace the unknown." Lyra's glow pulsed, brighter and steadier than ever. She had learned, grown, and contributed in ways beyond imagination. And yet, she remained humble, curious, and willing to continue learning. The Xylians, impressed by what they had witnessed, agreed to form a lasting alliance with the humans, facilitated by Lyra's presence. She became a bridge, a teacher, and a symbol of what could be accomplished when species worked together with respect and understanding. As night fell on Violia 9, Ethan watched Lyra manipulate the stars above. Constellations formed, shifted, and danced, telling stories of courage, unity, and hope. Humans gathered to watch, their fears forgotten, replaced by awe and inspiration. Even the Xylians observed in silent respect, realizing that their gift had exceeded all expectations. Lyra looked at Ethan, her glowing eyes reflecting the stars. She had found a home, a purpose, and a family among humans. And Ethan knew, without a doubt, that she would continue to shape the future of both species, not through fear or power alone, but through understanding, courage, and the quiet strength of her heart. "You are beautiful, Lyra," Ethan whispered. "Not just in appearance, but in everything you are. You have placed the stars in your hands, and now the universe will know your light." She smiled, if such a thing could be called a smile, and together they watched the stars shimmer across the galaxy, a reminder that even the most unexpected gifts could become the greatest blessings. And for the first time, humans, Xylians, and Lyra herself understood the truth. Beauty, courage, and potential were not limited by form. They were defined by heart, choice, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. Violia 9 would never be the same, and the galaxy would never forget the story of the ugliest gift that became a symbol of hope, unity, and limitless possibility. Lyra raised her hands once more, and the stars above reflected her glow. The universe, vast and endless, seemed to bend toward her, recognizing her not as a child, not as a gift, but as a force of inspiration, a living testament to the strength of humanity and the promise of what could be achieved when fear was replaced with understanding. And as Ethan stood beside her, watching the stars dance in her hands, he realized that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had opened its eyes, and together, Lyra and humanity would show it wonders it had never dreamed possible. The ugly gift was no longer ugly. It was beauty itself, shining brighter than any star.